The 7 miracles Jesus did in the book of John. Jesus changes water into wine. John 2, 1 through 11. A wedding took place in Cana of Galilee on the 3rd day, and Jesus and his disciples were invited. Jesus' mother was also there. When the wine ran out, Jesus' mother told him, "They have no more wine." Jesus responded, "Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to his servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used for Jewish ceremonial washing. Each jar held between 20 and 30 gallons. Jesus instructed the servants, "Fill the jars with water." They filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Healing the royal official's son. John 4, 46 through 54. Once more he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned the water into wine. And there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. When this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. "Unless you people see signs and wonders," Jesus told him, "you will never believe." The royal official said, "Sir, come down before my child dies." "Go," Jesus replied. "Your son will live." The man took Jesus at his word and departed. While he was yet still on his way, his servants met him with the news that his boy was living. When he inquired as to the time when his son got better, they said to him, "Yesterday, at 1 in the afternoon, the fever left him." Then the father realized that this was the exact time at which Jesus said to him, "Your son will live." So he and his whole household believed. This was the second sign Jesus performed after coming from Judea to Galilee. Healing of the paralytic at the pool. John 5, 1 through 18. After this there was a Jewish feast, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. By the sheep gate in Jerusalem there is a pool with 5 covered colonnades called Bethesda in Hebrew. Within these lay a multitude of sick people, blind, lame, and paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel of the Lord would occasionally descend into the pool and stir up the water. After the angel stirred the water, the first person to enter the pool was healed of any disease he had. At this time, there was a man who had been sick for 38 years lying there. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been there for a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the sick man answered, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus told him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." Immediately, the man was made well. He picked up his mat and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath. You are not permitted to carry your mat." He replied, "The man who had made me well told me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is this man who told you, 'Pick up your mat and walk'?" But the man who had been healed did not know who it was. for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Feeding the over 5,000 with fish and loaves. John 6, 1 through 14. After these things, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. A large crowd was following him because they saw the signs he was performing on the sick. Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in the place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is a prophet who has come into the world." Walking on water. John 6, 15 through 25. Therefore, when Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea, coming near the boat. They were terrified, but he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. Healing a man born blind. John 9, 1 through 41. As Jesus was passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," Jesus said, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spat on the ground, made some mud with his saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. He replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. Where is this man? They asked him. Raising Lazarus from the dead. John 11, 1 through 46. At that time, Lazarus of Bethany, the hometown of Mary and her sister Martha, was ill. It was Mary whose brother Lazarus was ill, who anointed the Lord with fragrant oil and cleaned his feet with her hair. As a result, the sisters sent him a message informing him that the man they loved was ill. When Jesus heard that, he remarked, "The sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." At this point, Jesus adored Lazarus, Martha and her sister. As a result, he remained where he was for 2 more days after learning of his illness. Following this, he commanded the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." "Rabbi, recently the Jews tried to stone you, and you are going there again?" the disciples asked him. "Are there not 12 hours in a day?" Jesus responded. "Anyone walking during the day will not trip, since they can see the light of this world. However, if one goes in the dark, he falls because he lacks light." He said these things, and then he told them, "Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may wake him up." His followers then remarked, "Lord, if he sleeps, he will recover." Jesus, however, spoke about his death, but the disciples misunderstood him to be talking of finding peace in sleep. At that point, Jesus told them in no uncertain terms, "Lazarus is dead, and I am pleased that I was not there so that you may believe. Let's nonetheless approach him." Thomas, commonly known as the twin, then addressed the other disciples, saying, "Let us also go, so that we may die with him."